What's going on, everyone, and welcome to your favorite little soccer podcast on the internet. It's Stateside Footy. What's going on, man? I'm Steve Silver, and joining me tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, is the pride of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's one half of one of the best USMNT podcasts on YouTube. It's Braden Hines from American Ultras Talk. Braden, how's it going tonight, man?
Wow, that's an incredible intro. I think I have some big shoes to fill now after that, but I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited.
Well, no, the pleasure is mine. And, you know, for those who haven't seen, go onto YouTube and type in American Ultras Talk and watch their content. It's actually a must see on my YouTube subscribe list. Like if you really want to get deep into the player pool, yeah, Braden and Yuri are the two guys who definitely get it done, man. But we have a really good show in store for you tonight. But before we get into it, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons. But do more than that. Go ahead and share this on the old Twitter sphere, and we can really grow this thing out. By the way, because this channel is actually growing a little bit, surprise, surprise, the person who actually hits number 100 is going to get a shirt of whatever they want. So if that is the Sounders shirt, 100%. If it's a Philadelphia Union kit, why not? Hey, but you know what? If you're a Spurs fan, I'm right there with you, man. So that's going to go ahead and that's going to happen. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let's have some fun. All right. So what we're going to do first is get into some news and notes, because there's two things that really happened with the U.S. men's national team within the last week and a half. The first one, word came out that Manchester United is not the only team that's interested in left back Anthony Robinson. Liverpool jumped into the fray. I don't necessarily know how I feel about either of those teams. Me personally, I just think he should stay at Fulham because they got something special happening there in Fulham. They got off to a very good start. I like the chemistry what's going down there at Craven Cottage. For me personally, I think the best move is just to play out the season to the next, until next summer, and then make that bold move ahead of the 2026 World Cup. How do you feel about that, Brandon?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think I'd even go further to say that I'm actually okay with Jedi Robinson staying at Fulham for basically the rest of his career. I mean, it may seem a little bit of a lack of ambition to some people, especially I know a lot of the USMNT fan base is always wanting our players to make the next step as soon as they prove themselves at a level, but I feel like Fulham is really the perfect club for him. I'm not sure if they're going to necessarily hit Europe at any point just because of how strong the Premier League is, but even if they don't, I think solid, stable, mid-table club in the best league in the world, playing against the best players week in, week out, you're going to be playing against basically the same competition regardless, whether you're at Fulham, Man United, Liverpool, outside of course the European competitions. And I think just a stable spot where he knows he's going to start every single week is probably best. That being said, I wouldn't be opposed to the Liverpool move just because Andrew Robertson, I think, is on a little bit of a decline. He's getting up there in age. Kostas Tsimikas, the backup, I don't think he's too great. I think Jedi would have no problem fighting for minutes. And I do actually think he fits the system maybe a little bit better when Klopp was there, but I still think he could fit in there. Man United are kind of a disaster as a club. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend anybody going there, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, right now with the instability that's going on at United, that would be a disaster move, in my opinion. I actually like what they're building in Fulham. I like the addition of Emil Smith-Rowe moving into that number 10 role. That's really opened up their attack, and with their overlapping runs on both sides, they've been absolutely dangerous so far this year. I think I think it's nice, and I think it shows a lot of respect. 100% that some of the bigger clubs in the English Premier League are looking at him, but I think we're both in agreement that he should probably stay at Fulham. The other thing I want to talk about tonight is this actually just hit today. And word came out that Liverpool, again, who's, I don't know, man, maybe they're just slurping the USMNT Kool-Aid. I have no idea. But apparently, word came out that they would like Christian Pulisic to replace Mohamed Salah. Now, whether that happens this summer or the summer after, apparently Liverpool are feeling it. Absolutely feeling Christian Pulisic, and why not? I mean, the dude is absolutely on fire right now. I don't know, man. That one kind of took me by surprise. How do you feel about
Well, as weird as it sounds, I mean, to replace a player like Salah, you have to be the best of the best, right? But I think it actually makes sense to me why they're interested because I feel like every time Pulisic plays against Liverpool, this was mainly, of course, in his Chelsea days, but now at AC Milan, he just played against them in the Champions League. He always shows out. I remember, especially in back in lockdown, Pulisic, what everyone says is the best version of Christian Pulisic back when COVID hit. He had that game against Liverpool where he was just making their defenders look silly. I think he scored and got an assist in that game as well. Obviously, just scored against them in the Champions League with Milan. It always seems like he's at his best against Liverpool, so I'm not surprised they'd want him. As for whether I'd actually want to see him go, I think this might sound boring saying this for two players in a row, but Milan's one of the biggest clubs in the world. I don't think you can go wrong with staying there necessarily, and especially with how good a form Pulisic's in, despite the team's struggles to start the season and a little bit of a shaky year last year. I think it is the perfect spot. The fans absolutely adore him, and if you have the chance to, again, stay there, finish your career, play out maybe 7 to 10 years at AC Milan, become a club legend at one of the historically greatest clubs in the world, I think that's unprecedented for an American. So I think he should take that opportunity and stay.
I 100% agree with you. The interesting thing is there was this weird narrative that Christian Pulisic couldn't necessarily get it done in the Premier League. That being said, man, he went to a club at the time with Chelsea that situation was untenable. As a matter of fact, he wasn't the only one that had to get away from Chelsea in order to get their career back on track. I always thought that if he was going to go into the Premier League, it was going to be with a team that may or may not be one of the top 3 clubs in that league. Like a team like Spurs always made perfect sense for a dude like Christian Pulisic. But that being said, maybe I'm just a little biased and I'd love to see him in a Spurs shirt. I don't know. But I happen to agree with you. I think right now he's found his niche in Milan. But not only that, he's found himself with a coach that absolutely believes in him, that's willing to go out there and put the ball right on his foot. And we've seen over the course of the last 3 games that Christian has no problem taking over matches. So I happen to agree with you. When was the last member of the USMNT that actually had that type of stability overseas? Even if it was for like a 3-year stretch.
That's a tough one. I would argue that Anthony Robinson kind of has that now. You can obviously argue the size of the club there at Fulham, but I think he does have that. I would also say, going back to Fulham a little bit earlier, Clint Dempsey would probably be the one that sticks out. Tim Howard too.
Yeah, with Everton. Wasn't McBride over there for a couple of years in Fulham as well too?
He was, yeah. I think he may have been the pioneer of the full America movement.
100%. Well, all right. So speaking of Christian Pulisic, he did it again today. As a matter of fact, I believe he was playing Lecce today. Played 63 minutes. I rated him out at a 7.6 today, which is on par with his last 3 performances. 1 goal, 24 of 28, 86% passing, 34 touches, one in the final third. Again, 3rd goal in the third straight game. Absolutely on fire. And AC Milan just continues to do what AC Milan does, which is win. Here's the interesting thing. Because after the performance against Liverpool, which I was kind of hot and cold with that performance against Liverpool, but then he backed it up in the Milan derby, and again today. There seems to be this narrative around his form at the moment, and everybody is throwing out the term world class. I think everybody has a lot of recency bias, and I think like you understand, man, people are creatures of the moment. And I think it's more along the lines of they just want that one dude that's wearing an American shirt to be that flag bearer in Europe. And so they're 100% convinced that this dude is world class. But that being said, what does that mean? What does it actually mean to be world class? Obviously, like when we point to prime Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, or Luka Modric, or Zinedine Zidane, you name it. You point to them in their prime and say, that dude, 100%, these guys 100% are world class, and they know it because success at the club level and all the trophies, also success at the national team level with the respected national teams, 100%. And so, it begs the question. I mean, is Christian Pulisic 100% world class right now? And what does that even mean?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, and I've seen kind of a narrative going around Twitter that I do kind of agree with, and it's that if you have to really ask if a player is world class, it
Class.
probably means they're not world class. I feel like you mentioned the best of the best,
Yes.
right? But I think even players a little bit lower on a tier, like we just mentioned him, Pulisic potentially replacing him, like Mo Salah. I think anyone can say without a doubt, you see Mo Salah, yeah, that's a world class player. With that being said, however, I do think there's a reasonable debate here. And I think that the tough one is that everyone has a different definition of world class. Some people say, oh, it's only the best at each position. So basically, there's 11 world class players. But then I have a bit of a problem with that because then you're leaving out some attackers. Like, for example, you could have Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. Both of them play left wing. Which one of them is world class? And if you want to put Mbappe at striker, does that mean you're leaving Haaland out of the situation? I think there's a little bit more than that. I think a rule that I tend to go with that I think is actually, I think, pretty reasonable is the Ballon d'Or shortlist. I think the 30 players every year are nominated for the Ballon d'Or. And I think the 30 players there that are nominated, and of course there's some that always have injuries that maybe would have been nominated if they weren't, but the players in and around that list, I think, have a reasonable claim to be world class because, they're nominated for the most prestigious individual award in world football. And if Pulisic does keep up the form that he's in right now for the rest of the season, which is a big if because he's been playing incredible 7 goal contributions in 7 games across all comps. But if he does, I do see a world where he does get a nomination, not as a top end guy, but maybe as a 25 to 30 type player.
Oh, 100%. By the way, Soccer Satan has chimed in and said Pulisic is world class. 100%. Looks like Ice has checked in and says if he keeps this up, then I'll agree. 100%. For me, it's about 3 things, I think, for me. Now, this is just my definition of world class. This is not like set in stone. This isn't the 10 Commandments. This is not that, right? So the first thing for me is what is his reputation among current teammates and former teammates, but also former clubs? Did he leave those on good terms? Is he universally liked and respected by his former teammates? Right? Because you have to understand, it's like when you mention Ballon d'Or and things like that. To me, that's always a little bit of a popularity contest, in my opinion, right? But that being said, you heard former Chelsea and AC Milan teammate, current LAFC striker Olivier Giroud come out with SI and gave him a glowing remark. I think that's actually kind of huge. Obviously, Olivier Giroud in his prime was one of the most deadliest soccer players in the world. I think that's a glowing report. The second thing is also, is he a top 5 right winger right now in Europe? Right? Is he better than Ousmane Dembele? Is he better than Mo Salah? Is he better than Bukayo Arsenal guys? Bukayo Saka. Thank you very much. Is he better than Lamine Yamal? Is he that's the thing. It's like those are 5 guys right there that clearly are like at the top of the heap, right? And I'm not saying it's no disrespect to Christian Pulisic at all, right? He's absolutely phenomenal, but understand that once he got to AC Milan, that's the first time he actually been a consistent starter. When he was at Dortmund, he only had once in 2017, 2018. That was his only season that he had more than 20 starts in the year. When he was essentially a squad player, a good squad player, but this is the first time where a team in Europe literally committed to him and gave him 30 plus starts a year. And obviously he's flourished in the year in 5 games that he's had right now. So to me, that's a big one. But also the last thing, I think this is the biggest one. Are the best teams in the world willing to get into a bidding war over him and pay an exorbitant transfer fee for him to come to that town and go right into their starting 11? So Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Bayern Munich. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. Liverpool wants him. That's great. But, is there another team that's globally recognized as one of the top teams in the world that are willing to get into a bidding war for his services? Or are they pretty good right now? I think Barcelona's pretty good. I think Madrid's kind of good right now, and I think also Bayern Munich's pretty good at that position as well too.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I would say though that I think it's a little easier to get into the world class conversations as an attacker because I mean it's the what you want from a player as a fan is to score goals. I mean that's the entertainment value, and of course that's how you win games as well. So I think there's going to be a lot more attackers who are put in the world class conversation than say defenders or goalkeepers. And I also just like to maybe discount one of your points or argue against it, which is the universally respected one. I think I'm a Barcelona fan for European teams at least, and one example that sticks out to me is Luis Figo. I mean, I think there's no debate there that he was not exactly the most respected player, but I think that it's pretty undeniable that he was world class. I think it's kind of a case by case basis here, but I do understand where you're coming from, especially with like the bidding war type thing. But again, also there's the whole factor of will clubs take a risk to move on from maybe a player who's slightly worse to a player who's slightly better, but risk that the new player coming in for a huge fee and then flopping. It's sometimes better to just stay safe.
100%. And to back up your earlier comment, where that you would like to see him to stay at AC Milan, and I'm 100% with you too, because I mean, if he can over the course of the next 3 years be this consistent game in and game out to the point where he's winning trophies with AC Milan. If he's taken AC Milan deep into a Champions League run, quarterfinal, semifinal, not only will he be loved and respected in that town, but I think from that reputation standpoint, he'll probably end up. I would probably assume in the next 3 years he would probably get there. But before we switch gears, what does this run of form mean for the United States men's national team coming up for Mauricio Pochettino's first roster call-up?
I think it's a huge thing to see your undisputable best player in probably the best form of his life. I mean, I think we like to jump the gun a little bit with some of our players. I know it's fun to see these players popping up at big clubs, these young, exciting guys, and overreact a little bit, hype them up a little bit. And I mean, I'm all for that. But I think when you face reality, it basically is just Pulisic and 10 more players. And that's how the rest of the world sees the USMNT. I mean, I've spoken with a bunch of foreign friends that I have that all view it the same way. And I mean, it's been that way basically since he broke in. Obviously, our player pool is getting a lot better than when he first broke in around 2017. But I think having your leader, and I mean, I don't really think he's a leader, but he's kind of been forced into that role, especially under Greg. I will be curious to see if that changes, by the way, under Pochettino. Maybe a new captain comes in, but you do lead by example on the pitch, and your best player is influencing the rest of the team in some regard. And if he's in this kind of form where we're even having the debates if he's world class, I mean, we've never had these debates about any American player ever. So I think it's a huge thing, and it should inspire a lot of confidence in the group, in the locker room, and hopefully he can just motivate the rest of the team to maybe up their standards a little bit.
I don't know, man. Back in 2009, from 2009 to 2012, I was having a conversation with my brother about Clint Dempsey being world class. Dude, Prime Deuce at Fulham was unbelievable. But I digress. All right. So now that we've established, I think you and I probably both agree that if Christian sticks it out with Milan, I'm sure it's going to get to the point where we don't even have to ask that question. It's going to take a lot of consistency, and it's going to have to be to a point where this isn't even when his form dips a little bit, he's still able to still contribute goal contributions. And I think within the next couple of years, I think we're going to get to that point where it's 100% obvious. But now that we mentioned Mauricio Pochettino, as we know, we're coming up to this next window where we do have Panama and we do have Mexico. The big one, obviously, down in Guadalajara. I'm absolutely just fired up for this one, and of course, we'll be doing live streams for both games coming up. I'm curious. I think we all know who is going to be there. I think of the starting 11, I'm sure that 8 or 9 of the names that we assume are going to be put right into the starting 11. I don't think we need to name those. But what I wanted to do was talk to you about sleepers. Sleeper picks that maybe we're not even keeping an eye on. Maybe it's because they got froze out under Greg, former U.S. men's national team players who could easily make an impact, but we haven't heard of them in 6 years because, well, Greg had his guys. So I'm going to start with you. Who do you like? Is there a list of guys that who literally could get the call up coming up?
Should we just go one by one, alternate? I'll name a guy, you name a guy. All
Absolutely.
right. I'm gonna start with. I think it's a player who. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here. It's a player who was included in the last camp, but I think in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't really been with the USMNT in the past, and that is Aiden Morris. I think he was the most impressive player to me in the last camp, and that's saying something because admittedly, I wasn't a huge fan of the guy when he was in MLS, mainly due to his USMNT performances. I thought that Gold Cup performance that he had, this couple of games and then going home early due to personal reasons. I mean, I understand. I don't fault him for going home for the personal reasons. Of course, everyone has situations that come up, but his play on the pitch really worried me, and it kind of showed me he wasn't at the level. Same thing with the U23s. I think at times he was kind of shown his level a little bit outclassed, but making the move to Middlesbrough has worked wonders for him. He's been one of their best players. Hopefully they remain in a championship promotion playoff fight this season, and I think he's going to be a crucial part to that. I'd love to see him included. And one more thing I would like to say before we keep getting into this list. Sure. I saw somebody on Twitter mention this, and I think it's actually a really good idea. I'm not sure if it'll happen, of course, because I think that's part of the beauty of Pochettino's first camp and why we're all so excited. We have no idea who's going to be called in, but I did see someone say that there could potentially be up to a 30-man roster, and I think it does make a lot of sense because, of course, Pochettino is Argentine. And that's something we see Argentina's national team do a lot. They bring in a huge amount of players, 30, 31, 32. Obviously, they don't all play in the games. You only have limited spots on the bench, spots in the 11, and whatever. But bringing in those extra guys, some of them young in particular, which suits our player pool a lot, and just having them have the experience of training every day with the first team, with the senior team, with the guys who are always on the team sheet for, well, in Argentina's case, the World Cup winners, one of the best nations in the world. I think it's something that Pochettino, coming from that background, could implement. And I'd be really open to seeing it because it's the best way for him to evaluate as much of the player pool as possible in a quick amount of time because we don't have a lot of time realistically.
No, we have 10 windows left before 2026, something like that. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And especially if you want to maximize the window and get some names that that we haven't seen in quite a while, it makes perfect sense. And here's a name that we haven't seen in quite a while because he was frozen out of Greg's 6 years. And I'm gonna throw the name Julian Green out there. And one of the things about Julian Green is he's only 29 years old, playing in the second Bundesliga. And I know a lot of people give him shit because he plays in the second Bundesliga, but a lot of people actually think that it's better than the top flight in German football. This last week, I had him rated out as 7.4, and this is now the third straight week that I've seen him where his rating is absolutely pretty good. He played a full 90 his last time out, 2 shots, 39 to 44 passes, 6 passes into the final third on 67 total touches. The dude is absolutely quick. And, the way that Pochettino likes to play, where you have pace down the flanks, right? It makes a lot of sense to bring him in just to see if he fits. I've been keeping an eye on this dude for the last couple of years. And I don't know, man, we saw him in the 2014 World Series, 2014 World Cup. And you know what? It was what it was at the time. But that being said, Jurgen Klinsmann was just trying to put the best roster on the field. And then, like I said, man, he's 6 years better. And he's only 29 years old. I think he fits it.
I mean, let's not forget that he scored in that World Cup too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely something to not ignore. But I do have a response to that. But first, I just want to get to what I said because I feel like we've been neglecting it a little bit. Luca Kolyosho and Henry Chase. I would also love to see them on the roster. I mean, I don't know about you, but We
Yes.
on our channel recently did a video about
Yes.
why we're losing Duel Nationals. We mentioned these two as potentially ones that we might lose for various reasons. So sneaky little plug, go check that out if you haven't. But
Plug away, man. Plug it away.
I appreciate it, but I just don't see it. I mean, like you said, I just don't see it happening, especially since, I mean, for the whole Henri Chase situation, he'd have to give up his Japanese citizenship likely. That's just not something that any player would really want to do. Kolyosho seems to have his heart set on Italy for whatever reason. I can't decipher it because he has no connection to there. But I mean, it kind of is what it is. Kolyosho's had basically a standing invitation to the national team for some time now. I've heard that from some reliable sources, and he's just never willing to accept it. And at some point, you have to get tired of that. As a manager, your pride takes precedent, and maybe we look at better options. But in terms of Julian Green, I was kind of worried you were going to say John Brooks there for a second, because I think John Brooks might be the most overrated player in our pool by some fans to say he needs to have a shot. He's completely finished. Julian Green is very interesting. Like you said, he started the season very well with Greuther Fürth in the Zweite Bundesliga, the second tier in Germany. And he does have 3 goals. Now, granted, 2 of them are penalties, but the other one was a really, really impressive goal. I think it came against Jan Regensburg, another team that's around mid-table, bottom of the table in that division. So he's getting it done basically every week. I mean, I'm very vocal about not necessarily just looking at the app ratings, actually having the players pass the eye test. But if you watch him on the pitch or even in the stat sheet, he's always showing up. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him get a call-up, honestly. I know some people argue maybe time isn't on his side as a 29-year-old, but the World Cup's only in, what, a year and a half, 2 years?
A year and a half, yeah.
So I mean, maybe he's on an option for 2030, 100%. And if this is going to be a long-term project, maybe you don't bring him in. But for 2 years as a 31-year-old, a bit of experience in the locker room at all kinds of the highest levels, I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing.
Absolutely. As far as Luka Kolyosho goes, he's a brilliant dude. He's brilliant. Like his touch is unbelievable. But I have this feeling like when it comes to certain dual nationals, they don't like the prospect of being depth pieces for national teams, right? So some of them, Real Salt Lake center mid,
Luna.
Thank you, Diego Luna. You can see the player, and you can see the pizzazz that he has. But that being said, he's probably a C team level player right now. So he's probably a depth piece at that position. There's 3 guys that you probably list ahead of him. But for a guy like Kolyosho who has options, right? There's you said he's got a withstanding offer from the U.S. But with that being said, he also wants to know if he's going to be competing for starting job at the USMNT. He doesn't want to get lost in the shuffle. That's at least my feeling of it.
Well, I mean, I'm going to contradict that actually, because where he's at right now with Italy, he's making their U21s, he's getting called up, but he's not even making the matchday squad. I've never seen a player get called up to a youth national team and not even make the bench, unless there's an injury problem, but there wasn't, because he played the week before and he played the week after. There was no injury problem there. He just simply was not good enough to make the bench out of the players they called up, which is just ridiculous to me. I mean, it's not even the senior team with Italy. If you want to talk about getting lost in the shuffle, the only reason they're even giving him this call-up is to just keep him, give him a little bit of hope to say maybe you have a future with Italy. They don't rate him at all. And I think there might be some deeper reasons behind that I mean, I don't want to get into, but I think everyone watching might know Italy's history in that regard. But I just don't think, I mean, if you look at the quality they have, Willy Gnonto, for example, I think he's a better player in the same division around the same age that is getting called up. Kolyosho has a lot of work to do there. And if he wanted to maybe stand out as a player, he has other nationalities too. I mean, he has Canada that I think he'd go there, immediately start over someone like Jacob Schaffelberg, who granted did have a very good Copa America, but I think it's hard to argue the quality as a player. Nigeria as well as an intriguing option. They have a lot of good striking options. On the wing, it's a little bit less narrow, but even for the U.S. now, I mean, Tim Weah's hurt now. Griffin Yao's hurt now. Kevin Paredes is hurt now. Our entire pool is hurt. And even when they're not hurt, I don't even think they're that good. I think Kolyosho could come in and immediately push Weah for his starting spot.
100%. 100%. What's your second name on your list as far as sleepers go?
Well, if you want to pull up Mateo's comment right here, I think
Yeah.
it kind of it's a nice segue into my second
Yeah.
player, because he's
I'm
saying
glad you
the
brought that up.
goalkeeper situation needs sorting, and that's 100% true. It's probably the worst position that we have right now. That and center back as well is a bit of a problem. Said that we can't make a run without at least a solid keeper. I mean, if we go back to 2014, like we talked about that World Cup, the only reason we even had a chance at making it to the quarterfinals in that is because Tim Howard bailed us out against Belgium. And I would argue we should have won that game, but that was only because Tim Howard had the game of his life. Probably the best goalkeeper performance we've ever seen from a goalkeeper in the World Cup, which is incredible from an American. It's great to see, but the level now is probably 20 times worse. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that. We know the situation with Matt Turner. He was third string at Nottingham Forest, just went on loan to Crystal Palace to be a backup. He didn't even play in their cup game midweek in the Carabao Cup. It's a one thing to maybe not play in the FA Cup. That's the big competition there as a domestic cup, which hasn't really started yet for at least Premier League level clubs. The Carabao Cup is everyone rotates. Everyone.
100%.
All the clubs. Chelsea played a completely new starting lineup. Now, granted, they also have about 50 players on their squad, but they rotated every single starter. Crystal Palace didn't really do much of that, but to not even put your backup keeper in for a cup game, I think it just shows how bad of a situation Turner's in. And Ethan Horvath, who's been the main backup to him, might be even worse. He just got benched at Cardiff City, a whole level down. Some of that was due to his poor play. Some of that was probably also due to the fact that he was with the U.S. over international break. The other goalkeeper wasn't, so he had time in training to impress. But regardless of why it was, Horvath's benched, Turner's bench, and that leaves me with Patrick Schulte from the Columbus Crew. Another Crew product, actually. You'll think maybe I'm a Columbus Crew fan mentioning Aidan Morris and Schulte, but I think it just makes sense to bring him in. I was very happy to see him start the first game of the last camp, but I think he kind of bailed us out, honestly. I think we could have lost to Canada by 3-4 goals without some of his incredible 100%. Saves. He needs to be the starting goalkeeper for the future. If you want to bring in Turner maybe as a third option, as a leader experience, I don't even think he's that good of a leader. I'll point to an interview he had right after we got eliminated from Copa America after the Uruguay game. He said that he saw no problem with the direction the program was going. I think that's a huge red flag to me, but I think it does make sense to have one goalkeeper in there as an experienced leader. Maybe Sean Johnson's even better in that aspect, to be honest, but if you want to have him there, fine, but he can't be starting. Schulte has to be starting week in, week out. Gaga Slonina as well. His form has been a little up and down at Barnsley, but I think he's another one who at least deserves one chance with the national team. It's a bit difficult for him because he plays in League One in England. Not only is it not the highest of levels, but they also don't stop for the international break, so it's very hard to have him called up because obviously the club wants to keep him through potential games that they might have through the window. And then Diego Cochen as well, of course, at Barcelona. He also just got injured. Seems to be a theme with American players. But once he comes back, he was in his USMNT camp for the first time last window. I think all three of them should be experimented with, see who the best option is, not only for now, but for the future as well. Because I think, as we all know, goalkeepers take a little bit longer to develop. As just an 18-year-old, I'll use Cochen as an example. He could potentially be a guy until 2038 even.
Yeah, you brought up Gaga Slonina, and that was actually where I was going to go next with my next pick. And I think everybody understands I'm firmly in Camp Gaga. I think this dude is absolutely talented, and understand he gets a lot of crap because he's playing in League One for Barnsley, and a lot of people just assume that was something that he wanted to do, and people don't seem to understand that Chelsea did a lot of their business through the main portion of their summer transfer window, didn't get to their loan army to the end of the window. And so by the time he actually got his move, most teams had their keeper situation already taken care of. He almost had to take what he could get at that point, which was that loan to Barnsley. But understand, in League One, you're absolutely right. It's not the highest rated league in the world, but outside of Arthur Okonkwo at Wrexham, Gaga Slonina is probably the best goalkeeper in that league. He's actually very good. Got off to a very good start. Now, granted, here's the thing, right? I think it was, 3 out of his first 4 matches, he was man of the match. But that being said, he had a bad start against Stevenage in a 3-0 loss, a 3-0 shutout. And then, of course, it was the cup match against Manchester United at Old Trafford, which it's unfortunate, man. Sometimes it happens. It was a bad performance, but then he kind of rebounded nicely last weekend. I think it still was, a 2-1 loss. Yeah, 2-1 loss to Burton Albion. But he actually looked a lot better in that game. The thing I like about him is I just like his overall game, and I happen to agree with you. This is a situation where Matt Turner absolutely cannot be called into camp. Like he's not playing. It would be one thing if he was actually getting the occasional start in the Premier League through just through rotation or the occasional cup match, where at least you keep him sharp. But he's not getting that. You cannot keep bringing in players into the national team that do absolutely nothing to the bottom floor of your national team. I'm sorry, it just cannot happen anymore. Like I understand he was Greg's guy, but Greg is gone. It's over and done with. You brought up Patrick Schulte. I like Patrick Schulte. I think he's also got an incredibly high ceiling as well too. But this is a situation where you have to find out what these young kids are made of at least the national team level, even if it's only in training with the first team. You gotta be able to see it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Although I will caveat one thing. I don't think
I saw your facial.
I don't think he's close to the second best keeper in the league. And I think if you look at some of the advanced stats, I think the main basic one is save percentage, right? And he's actually in the bottom half of the league in terms of goalkeepers and their save percentage. Like you said, he got off to an incredible start, and I was very excited for that. But the last couple of games, and this doesn't even include the game against Man United because it's not League One, right? So I think recently he hasn't been as great. The other thing that worries me about Slonina is he's not good with his feet. Now, granted, none of our goalkeepers are. Kochan's probably the only one that you can point to and say he has a little bit of skill, a little bit of quality on the ball. But Slonina seems to be really not great. And the fact that he's been in Europe for so long, not too long, but a couple of seasons now, this is his second season as a full-time starter, and he doesn't seem to be getting any better at it. Just seems to be a little bit worrying to me. The other thing I'll add is that, yes, you said Chelsea did a lot of their business for the main transfers and the basically the guys they needed to sell, the guys they needed to buy, or probably didn't need to buy in Chelsea's case. But I think it worries me that he's a young goalkeeper. He was brought in for them to be potentially a long-term future, a long-term solution to the goalkeeper problem that they had at the time. And he's not getting priority in terms of a transfer. He's getting left to basically salvage for what he can get at the end of the window. Premier League clubs have a certain number of international loan spots. I think it's either 6 or 7. I don't remember off the top of my head. But you would think that especially for a goalkeeper where it's so important the system fit and to go somewhere where you can get regular game time, you'd think they'd prioritize a young goalkeeper over a player like even Georgi Petrovic, who is an older goalkeeper, maybe a little bit better now, but realistically has no long-term future at Chelsea. They prioritize Petrovic right now over Slonina, and that's one thing that I think is very concerning for me.
By the way, what happens if Barnsley gets promoted and Slonina is one of the biggest reasons why? What if that plays out?
Then I think you definitely give him a call-up. I think you have to reward for him regardless. There should be taken into consideration a little bit the level because, I mean, we don't want a goalkeeper who's tearing it up in USL, right? You have to factor in a little bit of the competition level. But if he does do that, and I really hope he does because I like Barnsley as a club, especially going back to a couple of years ago when Daryl Dike was there. They seem to love their American players. They've already taken to Donovan Pines, the other American that's there, and Slonina so well. I really want to see them succeed as a club, and I'd love to have a solution at goalkeeper like Slonina. I'm just a little hesitant to necessarily say he's absolutely the guy just right now.
I just like his ability to take risks. That dude is a risk taker. And sometimes it works out. And then, of course, in matches like Stevenage and, Manchester United, it didn't necessarily work out all that well. But who's number 3 on your list?
Well, let's just keep moving up the pitch a little bit, and sure. I'm gonna go with another winger, not another one, but we mentioned Koleosho, and I actually see in the chat Stambuk kind of stole my pick there a little bit. Great minds think alike, I guess. I recognized him from some of our comment sections, so I understand why maybe he put that name out there. Griffin Yao, I think, is a key one. Now, I will just preface it with he is injured right now, so he can't necessarily get a call for the October window. But for the future, I think he definitely deserves a look. I mean, it's just an unfortunate timing for him getting injured because, like I said, our entire winger pool is injured right now, and it would have been the perfect time for him to get called up. Yes, Mateo, he is injured, like I've been saying. But for the future, I think he's a perfect guy. I think he showed in the Olympics maybe not the most consistency, but some flashes, and specifically in that game. Which one was it? I'm trying to remember. It was the 4-0 win, I think, to end the group stage.
New Zealand.
Was it
No,
New Zealand?
Or was it
Guinea?
Guinea.
I think it was Guinea. In that game against Guinea, I think he really impressed. And I mean, I've been high on him for a while.
Yeah.
Yuri has as well. My co-host, we've been watching him at Westerlo. He had a breakout season there. We would have liked to have seen him got a move, because that would have maybe tested his level a little bit more. And because he was at the Olympics, he started this season off pretty slow because he didn't have any preseason. The Belgian league actually started before he got even back from the Olympics, which was another thing. And that's why actually for Brian Reynolds, another player who's there, that's why they didn't release him. But I think once Yao gets back into the starting lineup, back from injury, he's going to continue to prove his quality. And it's just another option we have. Another one who's really never been even in the picture. I mean, he's been with some youth teams in the past, the U17s a while ago, but because he never really broke through at DC United as an academy player, he was kind of cast aside there, made the move ambitiously to Westerlo. It's worked out, and I think it's just a little bit of a different career path, and I'd like to see some of that.
Absolutely. I actually thought Griffin had an amazing Olympic tournament. All things considered, I mean, Kevin Paredes also stood out as well too. Considering that they only took one center forward, and were literally, trying to shuffle Paxton Aronson into that mix. Seeing Griffin not only in the attack but being able to track back on defense, I actually thought he was probably the best player for a couple of those group stage matches. I'm going to stay in the center of the park because I think this guy who just came back from injury, Gianluca Busio, he actually came back and had a very impressive match with Venezia this last weekend. I think, as a matter of fact, he was man of the match as well too. It was a 2-0 win over Genoa. I had him rated at an 8.5. He was that good. 89 minutes. He had scored a goal on 2 shots, 30 of 38 passing. 4 passes into the final third, 53 touches. And, we had to wait a little bit, but as soon as he got back on the field, he didn't let down. That was the other guy who I thought had a pretty solid Olympic tournament before he was ultimately out. This dude is just pure talent all the way. I mean, he really is. I mean, I watched that match and I was just amazed. I mean, it literally looked like he didn't miss any time whatsoever. And I think it's going to be interesting considering that he's playing with Venezia. I guess you can call him the proverbial yo-yo team there of Serie A, between Serie A and Serie B. I like the fact that, he's going to be that main focal point. And I like the fact that he can play multiple positions in the midfield as well too. He gives the USMNT a lot of different options. And I think that's going to be greatly appreciated for Mauricio Pochettino.
For sure. I mean, I think it's very significant to mention as well that when he did come back from the injury, his first game, not only was he immediately thrust into the starting lineup, it was against AC Milan. Now, they did lose that game 4-0, but I thought watching that match, I think he was the only player on Venezia who looked like he even belonged on the same pitch as some of the Milan guys. Pulisic scoring a goal and getting an assist in that game, by the way, as well, continuing his excellent form. And then, of course, you mentioned the game against Genoa, where not only did he score, it was a bit of an accidental goal, let's be honest. I don't think he was meaning to shoot. The goalkeeper made a mistake, but he did also draw a penalty in the match, which I think kind of gets swept under the radar a little bit because Poyampalo, the striker, did actually miss the penalty. It would have been, I think, on a lot more highlight reels if the penalty was scored, but it's very significant to mention that. As well as the fact that, I mean, like you said, he was by far their best player, won a man of the match. He's played only 2 Serie A games this season for Venezia, and he's been their best player in both of them. That win as well is so crucial because, I mean, I've been watching Venezia a lot because I'll keep mentioning him. My co-host Yuri is a Venezia fan. He has family from Venice in Italy, and they're just really not Serie A level, to be brutally honest, and any points that you can get on the board are absolutely massive. And if Busio can continue to be their best player, getting them points, even if they do get relegated, I honestly don't care. If he can show he's at the level, someone will buy him. We saw that with Tanner Tessman. He didn't even play in Serie A last season. He was in Serie B. And that's actually the next player I was going to mention. A nice little segue there. Busquets' former teammate, Evanesia, Tanner Testman. I think there's so many midfielders we could mention here, and it's kind of difficult because it's such a stacked position for the USMNT. I mean, you already mentioned Julian Green, I mentioned Aiden Morris, now we're going Busquets and Testman, but I think there needs to be a little bit of shuffling. Tyler Adams is injured. Yunus Musa has been very poor for the USMNT as of recently. I know he's still young. He's still a long-term option for sure, but maybe for now it could give him a little bit of a wake-up call to drop him for a camp or two. And Testman coming in there, especially since the other CDM, Johnny Cardoso, has also started the season poorly. He had the injury that he just came back from, looked a little bit shaky in his first game back for Betis, and we know that horrible mistake he made against Canada in the most recent camp. His USMNT form also hasn't been great. Watching Testman last year, he started out as probably the best player in Serie B. Yeah, it's a little bit lower of a level, but I think we saw flashes of that at the Olympics too, as our captain, might I add, which is significant not only because he's a U23 in a camp that we had 3 overage players called in for. So not only is he stepping out players 7-8 years older than him for the captaincy, which is something we absolutely need. I don't think there's really a leader in the main USMNT. He's also delivering on the pitch as well. Just got a move to Lyon. If you want to talk about testing at the highest level, they're in Europa League. He just made his debut there off the bench. I'm hoping he starts a few more games because that gives us a better sample size. But I mean, it's such a huge jump, and he's already at one of the biggest clubs of any of our midfielders. So if he can get a little bit of minutes, I think he's warranted more than enough to get another call.
Absolutely. And excuse me. And I think you hit it right on the head. The fact that Tyler Adams is out, and the fact that we have no idea how that's going to play out as soon as he comes back. Is the mileage already on his frame? You know, is he going to be something viable down the road that completely opens up that position? And you know, one of the things I'm curious to see is if Tanner can actually hang in League On. You know what I mean? That's, you know, that, I mean, a lot of people kind of don't necessarily rate it as high as some of the other leagues in Europe, but it's still I think it's still a very competitive league. And when you're going up against Marseille, when you're going up against Monaco, PSG, there's going to be ample competition. And you know, it's going to be like one of those sink or swim type of situations. But I actually think he's got the mindset and the talent to be able to take that position and run with it. My pick is I'm going back to the defensive side because obviously you mentioned earlier that center back is a position of need. You know what's interesting about it? I was thinking about talking about Austin Trusty tonight, but that being said, man, that move to Celtic really pissed me off. The Celtic Pro League, for anybody that doesn't know, there's 2 teams. 2. It's going to be Celtic and Rangers are having an off year. So it's literally Celtic beating up basically USL sides, maybe even worse than USL sides. The Scottish Premier League is not good. So if you are on the best team in the worst division in Europe, one of the worst divisions in Europe football. I mean, they had a nice little Champions League, showcase there. But that being said, I don't like the idea that Austin Trusty has, went to the side of Cameron Carter-Vickers and just being, dumbing up Scottish Premier League sides. I'm going to go with Jalen Neal of the LA Galaxy. The thing about it is his last 2, his 2 performances ago in El Tráfico, it didn't get off to the greatest start, but then I actually thought he finished pretty strong in that matchup. But then his next time out wasn't really all that great. But that being said, I don't know, man. I just think he's a kid with a high ceiling, especially at a position that's of need. I don't necessarily want to see Walker Zimmerman. I don't necessarily want to see Cameron Carter-Vickers. I don't want to see Tim Ream anymore. No disrespect, Timmy. I still love you, man. But the reality is, it's what is it? It's Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie, and then who else? Who else? Right? So, I mean, here's the thing. It's like I would rather see a young center back with a high ceiling. Maybe he's not there yet. But that being said, is it out of the realm of possibility to bring him into a camp and see how that plays out? Is there anything wrong with that?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I am not as high on Jalen Neal as I think most of the fan base is. I think he gets a little overhyped. Maybe it's down to the fact that we don't really have any center back options, and I think that's very valid. The fact that he's already playing pretty consistently for it is MLS, but one of the biggest clubs in MLS, one of the best teams in MLS. I don't think his performances have been that great, to be honest, since he came back from his injury, but it's worth a shot, giving him a chance. Basically, any young center back who's standing out at a level like this, you might as well give him a chance and see what they have, because like you said, Trusty, I'm very disappointed in, because I mean, as a Union fan, I rated the guy very highly coming out of our academy, and I thought he did very well when he initially moved to Europe with Birmingham. Sheffield United, it didn't go as planned, but that was the Prem. I was looking forward to seeing him stay and fight it out for a spot at one of the best
100%.
teams in the championship. I just don't like the move to Celtic. I have huge respect for the club. It's a massive club, one of the greatest historically, especially in the UK. But now, like you said, I mean, they get killed in the Champions League every year. It's a little bit different this year because of the new format. They got a pretty easy draw, I would say. So easy that I could even see them maybe qualifying for the next round, as crazy as that seems. But even with that, he hasn't even started a game for them yet, which is crazy.
Yeah, to your point, like right before he made the move to Celtic, it started looking like he was cracking the starting 11 for Sheffield. He had that start in the Carabao Cup, and then the start right after that, they put him in there, and I believe it was against Norwich, the game where Josh Sargent snuck one past him for a goal there. But it was looking like he was starting to, make some waves there with Sheffield, and all of a sudden he goes to Celtic, and you're like, you know what I mean? By the way, the other name that I wanted to give some flowers to was John Tolkien of the New York Red Bulls. He actually had a phenomenal weekend with the Red Bulls, and I think that kind of got overlooked when it comes to USMNT sleepers. I think he's done everything that he can do in Major League Soccer, and I think this January, when it comes to the transfer window, he's got to be the first guy to make that move over to Europe. And for me, the question is he going to go? It's who is he going? Like, where is he going to go? Right? Like, what level threshold is going to be a little too much for Tolkien when he eventually makes that move?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want me to do another pick, or if you want to move on to the final topic, especially because of the time. But if I was to have one more pick, it would have been John Tolkien, funnily enough. I think his season is getting swept under the radar a little bit just because the production in terms of the end product, the goals and assists, is not there like it was last season. We had 4 goals and 10 assists in all competitions for New York Red Bulls in 2023. This year, it's only 1-1, but I think at the Olympics, he was very good. And I think it's also very significant that he started every game, probably being one of our best players, a little bit of an unsung hero as well, over Caleb Wiley, who, I'll be honest, I think he only got called into the USMNT because he made the move to Europe. And I do appreciate rewarding guys who do challenge themselves. For sure. I think everyone should go to Europe if you have the ability to, because MLS is not at that level yet, and I hope Tolkien does it soon. I think the Red Bulls kind of screwed him a little bit, because though interest was there in the summer, that's the opportune time at least to move to Europe. It's the start of a new season. Red Bulls kind of screwed him out of that, and when in reality, he's not going to accomplish anything for them this season. They have no chance of winning a trophy this year. He'll probably move in the winter, I think, but who knows if he breaks into a team mid-season. It's a little bit more difficult, but his performance at the Olympics was so good. I think it's kind of ridiculous that people already see Wiley as over him.
Do you think the Eredivisie is a good level to start at?
I love the Eredivisie.
If he was to make the move.
I think that the Bundesliga, or Zwei Bundesliga, the second tier, makes a little bit more sense just because of the interest that there has been in the past. I think the club that Damian Downs is at, the German-American striker, Cologne, had some interest. I know some Bundesliga teams did as well. I mean, they were in the Bundesliga last season as well and had some interest back then. There was, I think, some other clubs as well around the top 5 leagues. I'm totally open to Eredivisie. I mean, I've seen so many of our players go there, succeed. It's a great stepping stone league for all young players, not just Americans.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I happen to agree with you, man. I absolutely love the Eredivisie, and depending on the team, and depending on the fit, I think it would be absolutely fantastic. All right, so let's get into the final topic of the night. We actually had a very brilliant week and a half for USMNT players abroad. So instead of going stock up and stock down like Braden and Yuri do every single week, we're gonna give you our starting 11 for the last week. So let's start in goalie. And Braden, who do you have in goal? Who impressed you this last week and a half?
Well, that's kind of a difficult one because I don't think many of our goalkeepers really impress too much. Oh man, this is
Who's
tough. I
solid?
mean, you
Who's
can't.
solid? Who was at least solid?
I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here. It's basically the MLS guys. Turner doesn't play. Horvath doesn't play. Slanina, I don't think he was too great necessarily in their win over Burton Albion. Cochin got hurt, so it can't really be him. Actually, I'm gonna give a very rogue one. I'm gonna go for Jonathan Klinsmann because obviously the son of our former coach Jurgen Klinsmann, because he got his first start for Cesena, who are a Serie B club. He's the backup there, but unlike Turner, he's actually playing the cup games. And I'm not saying he's a USMNT option or anything like that, but he did get his first start of the year in Coppa Italia against Pisa on the road, kept a clean sheet, made 3 saves, which were all pretty solid. So I'm going to give it to him because there's no other options, and I think he deserves some flowers for a nice performance.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Here's the funny thing, right? So I was thinking Patrick Schulte. You know what I mean? I was thinking about that, but then you have to rate the Campeones Cup against in the shootout against Club America. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So it's like, is there a USMNT pool player goalie in Major League Soccer that that kind of impressed? You're absolutely right about Gaga, but I'm actually going to go with it because I actually thought he rebounded better. I like the rebound. That's the thing, right? Like when you have back-to-back terrible performances and you're playing a position where it's all about like striker, it's all about confidence, and that has a tendency to derail you for long spells. And it was nice to actually see him rebound a little bit and play a little bit better. So yeah, I'm going to go with Gaga.
Yeah, that's a fair pick. I'm also going to give a little shout out to my guy Andrew Rick, the 18-year-old keeper from the Philadelphia Union. Should be with the U20s, in my opinion, for the USA. Had an incredible week. I think it was actually the week prior, but he had a highlight reel performance against NYCFC, keeping so many saves. So let me pull up the number quickly. 8 saves against NYCFC, helping Union win 5-1. One of his saves even made the ESPN top 10, coming in at number 2 for most impressive plays across all sports, which I think is pretty cool for an 18-year-old keeper. So I'll give him a nice little shout out too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you know what's funny is I was thinking about Matt Freese of NYCFC, and then the way that performance against Inter Milan happened, in the way that went down. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Like, I was kind of leaning in that direction, but I don't know. Decided not to. All right, how about left back?
Left back. I'm gonna go. I kind of just want to go Jedi because that's the easy pick, right? But I'll give it to Christopher Luntz. I'm going to give him a shout because I think they did just lose. I think it was 5-0 to Napoli in Coppa Italia, but he was very good. I think he was one of their only players. He created a lot of problems for Napoli as a left wing back. Had the most dribbles completed in the match, most tackles won, most duels won. He was everywhere, up and down the pitch. The only one for Palermo, like we could say with Venezia against Milan a couple weeks ago, like for Busio, for example, the only one who actually looked like he belonged. So I'll give him a shout out just because I think realistically every week it's going to be Anthony Robinson, and I think we all recognize that. It's nice to give some under the radar players some flowers.
Yeah, what's interesting is I thought Anthony Robinson was just his typical performances week in, week out. It's kind of hard to pick at it, but you know what though? I was really impressed with John Tolkien over the course of this last week and a half. And I actually, like, we're talking about flowers. I thought he had an absolutely brilliant week, and I think that he doesn't get enough recognition. I thought his ability with his service into the box. I don't know, man. It's something that the U.S. men's national team doesn't really have a lot of quality, and I just thought his performance stood out to a point where it can't be overlooked. How about center back?
Center back. So you want to pick 2, correct?
2
for a best
correct.
11.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think Tim Ream is a good place to start. Just got, I mean, it was a couple weeks ago that he got his first MLS goal, but also just kept a clean sheet in a 4-0 win over the New England Revolution. Looked very good in that. Actually playing left back in that game, which is a little bit weird because from what I remember with the USMNT, he was one of the worst left backs I've ever seen, but it's MLS, so I guess you can only hold it to a certain standard. But I think he's been very good for Charlotte as expected since signing for them. It's nice to see, and he has been with the USMNT in the most recent camp as well. Didn't look great in that, but he might continue to be part of the group as a leader because, I mean, like I said earlier in the stream, we don't really have much of those, and I think Ream actually is a pretty solid leader to the point at which I could even see him becoming a coach once he retires. I think he'd be pretty solid at that. So I'll give him a shout out. For the other one, man, can I just pass? I mean, McKenzie's injured. Cameron Carter-Vickers shouldn't count because he plays for Celtic. I'll give him. I'll give him the props for the performance against Slovan Bratislava because it was in the Champions League.
Fair enough, man. I'm actually calling out Chris Richards because listen, he did not get off to a good start at all with Crystal Palace. As a matter of fact, you were kind of wondering if if maybe the quality was starting to catch up with Chris Richards. He goes into the international break and literally just stinks up the place in the two matches against Canada and New Zealand. But then he comes back. This last performance against Manchester United, he's playing in a 3-back system on the left-hand side. He looked absolutely in a 0-0 draw against Manchester United. He actually played very brilliantly. This was actually the performance that I've been waiting to see from Richards. Just to let you know that he's got a pulse. You know what I mean? Like he's actually still in the fight there in the Premier League. And I think this is the type of performance that has some carryover effect. And I'm really looking at. I believe tomorrow they're against Everton, which should be like if you're looking to cure whatever ails you, just go play Everton because they're going to be a team that's going to get relegated this year. So this couldn't have come at a better time for Chris Richards. And what's funny is you mentioned Tim Ream. I was going to go Tim Ream as well too. I actually thought he had a very, very, very good performance against the New England Revolution and a 4-0 win for Charlotte. And again, it's just very good high level Tim Ream outing. So those two, I know it's boring, but yeah, that's the thing. As you mentioned, McKenzie, he's out, did not play. So it's kind of hard to rate a guy who's not there. So it is what it is. How about right back?
Right back. I mean, again, the main guy at this position is out and will be for some time. Serginho Dest. I'm not going to go Scally because I think he's been very underwhelming in the Bundesliga. Although I'm not even going to say underwhelming because it's what I expect from him. As long as he performs from the USMNT, I don't really care what he does for Gladbach, as harsh as that might sound. And he does usually perform for the USMNT. I'm going to go for Marlon Fossey, another guy who actually performed for the USMNT recently because, I mean, I think he was one of the only standouts in the most recent camp. Looked very good in a full 90-minute start against New Zealand. And this past weekend on Friday against Union Saint-Gilloise, I think I butchered that name, he got a clean sheet. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. French isn't my strong suit. But he played very well, as he always does, attacking and defending. And I'll give his whole team a shout out, actually, Standard Liège, because they've only conceded 3 goals in the Belgian league all season across 8 matches, which is absolutely incredible. And Fossey's a huge part of that as their right wing back. He does so much for them going forward and, of course, in the defense. For reference, the team who's conceded the second fewest goals is 7. So they're doing incredible to start the year, and I think Fossey's been one of their main players there. Got rewarded as he should have been for the USMNT call-up. I'd love to see him in the next camp as well.
Oh, absolutely, right. And you took my pick as well too, because that's the thing is Joe Scally does Joe Scally things, right? And that's the thing. It's like he gives you absolutely nothing in the attack, and he's your quintessential stationary right back. Very good, very steady on the defensive side, but for the U.S. men's national team, where you need to be a two-way player, just does not give you that. And I thought Marlon Fossey was absolutely brilliant in his last performance, and that was the thing. It's like you're coming off an international window where you turned a lot of heads. I think a lot of U.S. men's national team fans had no idea who Marlon Fossey was, and that was their first look at him, and he absolutely impressed. And hopefully it was it was that performance that actually had you, searching for streams for for Belgian Pro League. So you can get a look at him on the club scene. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. By the way, yes, I do that. Absolutely. Soccer streams are the best. But he actually rated out very well. And I just love the consistency. Let's see what we got here. There's Mateo. Fossey has some ability on the ball. Scally is basically a press trigger for our opponents, which kills us at times. 100%. 100%. All right, so let's get to the midfield. So 3 midfield positions. You don't necessarily have to do a CDM, but if you want to, if there was one that stood out to you, we can definitely do that. Just, your 3 midfield positions.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go for a CDM. Usually I would because we have so many that are always in a good situation. I'll give a honorable mention to Santiago Castañeda playing at Paderborn, the 19-year-old. If you have the chance tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern, watch him on ESPN Plus. It's one of the only times that him and his team Paderborn will be on live TV in the U.S. It's a great chance. They're in 4th right now. They're playing 5th place Hamburg, one of the biggest clubs in German history. Historically, so definitely go watch that if you can. But I'm gonna pick 2 center mids and a cam. I'm gonna go for, first off, I'm a Union fan. I have to go with Quinn Sullivan. Incredible week for him against DC United. He was absolutely fantastic. Best player on the pitch. Got 2 great assists. Showed up his brother Cavan for a change. I mean, he's been getting all the hype as of late, but
100%.
Quinn's an elite prospect in his own right. I think it's time people start recognizing that. And this season's been an absolute breakout for him. He's got 15 goal contributions in all competitions this year. He definitely deserves a pick here. I'm going to go for Busio. For the other one, of course, that man of the match performance against Genoa, I think it's self-explanatory. I think you'll probably have him on your list here as well.
Yeah.
And then for my other one, I'm going to go for a number 10, and I'm going to pick another former Union player, Brendan Aronson. Got an assist for Leeds. A very nice through ball to, I think it was Joe Peru at the end of the game against Cardiff. Cardiff aren't the strongest of opponents, but it was a very nice played ball. And I think he's the only other midfielder who actually got a goal contribution this week. McKennie did actually in the Champions League. He's another one you could pick, but I decided to be a little bit different here.
Absolutely. My 3 were, I'm going to go with Malik Tillman, who absolutely, it's ridiculous the form that guy's in currently right now for PSV, and he was coming off a very good week. And I can't do justice by leaving him out. Mateo, he did have a brace, and he was absolutely brilliant in that. Gianluca Busio, 100% deserves to be on the starting 11. And what's funny, I'll give a shout out to Aiden Morris, but Brendan Aronson was the guy who just continues to make the most of his second opportunity with Leeds United, and his performances. Have been so good to the point where, when you see him in a national team shirt, and you see him playing out on the wing on the right side, and you're just kind of screaming like, of course you're not going to get production from him because you know what, he's really not a winger. So it is what it is. I would love to see him be played at his natural position, but this week I think it was pretty good. So let's go to the wingers.
Yeah, so I'm just going to make some amends. The reason I didn't have Malik Tillman there and I didn't mention him is because I have him as a winger, which again, like Brendan Aronson, it's not his natural position, but with not only all of our wingers being injured, so there's a lack of options, he also does play left wing for PSV. He does drift centrally a lot, which is nice to see. I think he's excellent in those positions, but he does start out on the left, so I decided to put him here. Obviously, he had that brace, including that world-class free kick. I think you can't necessarily say he's a world-class player by any means, but he has moments of that quality, and that free kick was just the recent example of that. Excellent performance from him. He's to the point where even Dutch outlets, I think ESPN in the Netherlands has been saying that he might even be the best player in all of the Eredivisie, which I don't think is an unreasonable take to make. And I think next summer he's probably going to make a big move. So I have him on the left, and then on the right, it's pretty obvious, right? Christian Pulisic has to be in this 11. He scores every game, just scores for fun at this point. It's inevitable.
Oh, absolutely, and I also had Christian as well too. I don't think you can leave him out. Here's the thing: it's I would love to give flowers to Haji, right? But in his last performance, he only played 45 minutes and didn't stand out. What's interesting about it is I also want to shout out Paxton Aronson. I know in the last match that he had, it was a 4-0 defeat to Camber. I think I'm pronouncing that team right. But that being said, even in the midst of it, in the defeat, I thought he rated out pretty well. The interesting thing about this is, here's what I'll do. I'll do what you did, right? Because I had Malik Tillman inside, you had him outside. So I'm going to go.
Let me just make a little bit of advice. I'm probably the biggest Paxton and Brendan Aronson fan you'll ever meet as a Union fan. That game against Canberra was with Young Utrecht, the second team, which isn't necessarily a sign of what's to come for him. It's just he was there because he only came off the bench, played 1 minute in their Eredivisie game this past week, made some match fitness, but I don't think he deserves to be in the starting lineup for a performance where they got beat 4-0 in the second team.
For sure. So I guess I'm going to go with Julian Green. I think that makes them, for me, I guess that makes the most sense considering, it wasn't a 2-0 loss to Eintracht. I can't pronounce that. That it's Eintracht
Braunschweig. Is that what it was?
Yeah, Eintracht. Yeah, but
Johan Gomez plays there.
Yeah, he actually had a really good performance, so I guess I'm going to go with that. I guess that's good enough for me. How about striker?
So striker, I feel like everyone's probably going to have the same striker pick. It is Fuller and Balogun. It's going to be Fuller and Balogun. Finally got his first goal of the season. It's been a bit of a tough start to the year for him. It was a bit of a tough start last season as well. Thankfully, it hasn't been that bad this year. But it's just so nice to see him scoring finally.
Yes.
I was a little bit worried about the guy, to be honest, because, he started off last season poorly, was coming off the bench. The same thing happened this year. Didn't play at all against Lyon. They've been playing an 18-year-old, George. I'm not even going to try his last name because I know I'm going to butcher it, but huge talent that they signed over the summer as well. They've been playing him over Balogun. I think they both started together, actually, against Lauv, where Emmanuel Sabi plays. I think he came off the bench in that game, so a little shout out to him, although he didn't really do too much. But Balogun scoring, it's really nice to see. I'm going to give another quick mention because I think you're going to pick Balogun too. I'm going to give a quick mention to Jordan Pefok because he got his first contribution of the season, getting an assist against Hoffenheim. Actually, I don't know if I would say this, but he got man of the match on FOTMob despite only playing the first half, which I think is kind of crazy. But if that's what they think, that's what they think. I thought he played well, got his first goal contribution with the assist. So I'll give both of them a nice shout out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't rate Jordan Pefok because, there's a lot of questions about whether or not he's going to get involved with the national team camp or whether or not he's necessarily on that level. But still, man, you gotta give him flowers when you're going to give him flowers. My honorable mention for striker. Listen, I like every single week. I'm always trying to fit Josh Sargent into the equation because that dude started the season absolutely on fire. And even I think it was a 4-0 win, a 4-1 win over Watford. He had 3 very good looks at net. I guess it was bad luck. Whatever the case may be, those didn't go in. But that being said, you can still see the hold-up play. I like the fact that he's not. I love the fact that he's willing to track back, to make a touch, keep possession, and then move right back up the field. I actually think that he probably rates well with Mauricio Pochettino because he does everything that he likes in a striker. That's why I actually think eventually in 2026, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he was the starting striker in a year and a half. I also want to give some love to Jordan Morris of the Seattle Sounders. Mike, what's going on? What's up, Seattle? Now, here's the thing. When you look at the Seattle Sounders and you realize that they only have 2 contributors when it comes to their goals, it's either Albert Rusnik or it's Jordan Morris. They're getting absolutely nothing from either wing. And when you look at the fact that Jordan Morris has been absolutely on fire since April 28th, I think with that brace against San Jose in a 2-2 draw, I think that makes 15 of 18 league matches where he has a goal, including twice in League Cup. But that being said, yes, I'm going to go with Ballo. And I think it was the champion. It started with the Champions League, with his Champions League performance where he drew the penalty. And then he was able to come back with a goal. And especially just like goalkeepers, where everything is based on confidence and based on consistency, considering that he basically came into this season off a subpar season last year where I think he only had 7 goals. It's a vast difference from where he was just 2 years ago. When he was on loan in Ligue 1. So it's nice for me. It's nice to see that because hopefully this is the start of something. This is the start of something different. But that being said, it's still concerning that he was benched in the early portion of this season. So it's nice to see that, maybe the confidence is there. But I think it's interesting because I really don't think he fits well into a Mauricio Pochettino attack. I don't think that he's necessarily I hate to say it, I don't think he's a target guy whatsoever. I don't think he's necessarily great in the hold up either. So, for me, it's like, if it was in a 2-striker system where he's kind of playing that secondary striker almost as a false 9, where he's able to attack channels and run to the back posts. And if you have good service into the box, he's probably dangerous. But that being said, just the way that he was used in Greg's system, I didn't necessarily think it fit him all that well. And I don't necessarily think that he's going to fit Pochettino's as well too, but it's still nice to see him get on the score sheet.
I do have a quick question about that. Do you think that that is exactly the type of way that Pochettino wants his striker to play, or do you think maybe that was just a product of him having Harry Kane, probably the best striker, second best, third best, whatever, one of the best strikers, especially when it comes to dropping deep and holding up the ball, playing like that? I think it may have been more of a product of that, because if we want to play in transition, which is, I think, definitely a possibility, Greg didn't do it. Like you said, I don't think he fit Greg's system at all, but that's where Balogun thrives. And to Mikey Vara's credit, I think maybe one of the only things he got right in that camp that he had as an interim was giving Balogun these opportunities. Now, he didn't score any of them, and that is a larger problem because he does seem to have a recent history of missing a lot of big chances. But I think that maybe if we like to play that way, he could fit a little bit better. I think it certainly can't be worse than it was under Greg. We're just going to have to wait and see, I think.
Here's the interesting thing, because when Mauricio Pochettino came to Tottenham, Harry Kane wasn't the world-class striker that he ended up becoming. He was still kind of a raw product. And the way that Pochettino asked him to play, which is to play a little bit more deeper and also being a distributing 9 as well too, on top of using both feet. That's the thing. It's like that's not Balogun whatsoever. That's actually more Josh Sargent than Balogun. And I think I understand what you're saying, but it's not like Pochettino came in 4 years ago when Harry Kane was universally recognized as a world-class striker, already developed. When he came in, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm actually so excited for Poch, is because he does have this elite history, mainly at Spurs, but even at the other clubs he's been at as well, of developing these young players and turning them into really exceptional players. Honestly, world class in some cases. I mean, that one run of Dele Alli, I'm hoping Malik Tillman can be that for us, because he was absolutely sensational. But before all of the other issues that happened to him, mainly off the pitch. But yeah, I think maybe he plays to Balogun's strength. Maybe he plays to Sargent's strength. Maybe we see Pepe. I think he's probably more of a hold-up striker than a guy who runs in transition. I think we're spoiled for choice, and I think it's nice that we have that flexibility to have multiple types of strikers, different profiles to test out, maybe depending on the opponent. Because Pochettino, we know he's good enough as a manager to adapt.
Absolutely. By the way, I need to clarify, right? I don't think Jordan Morris is going to be called into a national team camp anytime soon. But that being said, you have to give respect to the fact that he's playing in an attack that doesn't have any attack, and he's like the main focal point of that attack, and he's absolutely on fire. Going to probably finish with 15 plus goals this season. And by the way, Mateo says, "Can Josh please stay healthy?" By the way, we were told at this last camp that he had like an ankle flare-up. But that being said, 2 days later, he played a full 90 for Norwich. That wasn't the reason why he didn't play.
I think maybe it wasn't the reason why he didn't play, but he wasn't even on the bench for that national team game. Right. He would have been on the bench, I think, if he was healthy. I think the problem with Sargent is he's had basically since his long injury that he had at the beginning of last season, he's always had these little flare-ups of maybe it's the recurring injury or other problems entirely. He always has these, and I think the problem is he kind of uses the national team breaks. I'm not putting this all on him, but I think he does kind of use those as a chance for recovery. He always seems to get called in, deservedly so, not seem to play, whether that's up to him, whether that's up to Norwich, whether that's up to our managers, Greg or Varas or whoever is at the helm. Maybe it'll be different under Poch, but I think he gets those 2 weeks off and goes in back to Norwich a little bit healthy, and then, well, it just flares up again, and it seems to be an ongoing cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would probably buy into that. I mean, but that being said, he came right out of that camp into a full 90. You know what I mean? Like, if there really was a flare up, he probably would have been sucked off at half or early in the second half. And I mean, literally, he was, he was playing his usual game. But we're about to wrap up here. Really quick, two things, Braden. Number one, very quickly, Gio Reyna. Word is that he's going to be back ahead of schedule. That's probably going to be ahead of the this upcoming window. Number one, is he a part of this? Is he a part of this window, or if it's going to be the next one? I believe it's the Nations League quarter. I think it's the quarterfinal. That seems a little bit more realistic, but also what is the projection for him under Pochettino moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's an unfortunate one for Gio because you always want to be part of the first camp under a new manager, especially the best manager that we've ever had for the USMNT. And that being said, I think Gio is probably doing all he can in training, especially like you said, he's ahead of schedule to be back for that. And I do feel for the guy. I just don't think it's the smart decision. I mean, we've seen this happen with Tyler Adams so many times last season where he gets rushed back a little bit too quickly and then just re-aggravates his injury. Tyler Adams is still out because of that. He did that twice last season. It happened in the Nations League, the final and the semifinal of that camp where he scored an absolute screamer against Mexico. And then it happened again in Copa America. I don't want to see the same thing happen to Gio, especially since I think, given his history, he's probably the most injury-prone player that we do have, and that's no small feat considering how many injuries our guys seem to get. So I think it just makes more sense to have him back for Nations League for the quarterfinals. We don't know who we're going to be facing yet, but it's probably going to be a weaker opponent as well, which is a nice way to ease him back into the action, a nice way for him to impress as well. As for where he stands under Pochettino, I kind of hinted at this. I actually don't think he's the 10 for the future just because of his reliability concerns in terms of injury history. I think he's more of a luxury player to have, which seems kind of harsh given his talent, but we've seen how good Tillman has been recently. Last season, he was so good at PSV in his first year there. Even 2 seasons ago, in his first really professional season at Rangers, he was very good. He seems to take a substantial step every year. This year, he's been so good. Like I said, maybe one of the best players in the Eredivisie. I expect that to happen again next season when hopefully he makes a move to a top 5 league, hopefully the Bundesliga, since that's where he came from. That's where he grew up, from the Bayern Academy. I think he projects more long-term as the number 10. I'm hoping Poch can work some magic, turn him into our Dele Alli. Dele Alli only lasted a couple seasons, but if Tillman only lasts for the USMNT until 2026 through that, that's fine. We have so many good 10 prospects that are coming up. Even if Tillman's not great long-term, that's fine for me.
Yeah, there's 3 guys that I want to see get a move out of their current situation, and Gio Reyna is definitely one of them. I think that situation in Dortmund's untenable. The other guy is Ricardo Pepi. I think he needs to get out of PSV as soon as he possibly can because long-term, I just don't see him starting anytime soon. And I also think Balogun needs to find his way out of Monaco. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there in Monaco. It just doesn't seem, I don't know. It just seems to me that they don't rate him as what they once did. And I think that maybe a move to another club that's going to give him a fresh opportunity and a fresh place to start, I think would actually do wonders for the U.S. men's national team. All right, that's going to do it for us quickly. Braden, do you have anything new coming out? Is there anything that we should look forward to from American Ultras Talk?
Just kind of business as usual, 2 to 3 videos a week. We may or may not have a video out tomorrow. That kind of just depends on availability tonight for recording. But if not, stay tuned for maybe a video Sunday or definitely our USMNT Stock Watch series. Kind of a little bit of a more condensed version of what we did tonight with the starting lineup. We pick 3 players who stock went up over the week, 3 players whose stock went down over the week, some other nice bits thrown in there as well. So definitely catch that on Monday as well. That's basically it for the near future. Of course, follow our Twitter if you don't already, American Ultras Talk. It'll have updates of everything we're doing. of course, if you guys are our viewers, I've seen a couple of you guys in the chat, make sure to subscribe to Stateside Footy. Help Steve grow his channel. It's very new. He makes good content, reliable, twice a week. So definitely subscribe to him, help him grow.
That's awesome. I was going to say the exact same thing. If you hadn't made your way over to YouTube to find American Ultras Talk, go ahead and do it. I am absolutely impressed with the content they're pumping out. Like I said, it is on my top 3 YouTube USMNT shows to watch. You guys do absolutely fantastic job. And I want to thank you, Braden, because we went over. We were trying to keep it to an hour, but sometimes it happens. But I do want to thank you for hanging in there, man. Hopefully we can get you back. Maybe we can do something with both of you guys, both you and Yuri. That would be absolutely fun. Until next time, I want to remind everybody to hit the like and subscribe button. I know Braden just said it, but I'm repeating it. It's worth repeating. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Until this upcoming Tuesday, we also are going to be coming back as we get closer to decision day in Major League Soccer. We're going to be focusing a little bit of that, as well as the USL playoffs as well too. That's about to kick up in high gear, and of course, in my own backyard, the Flint City Bucks are currently doing their thing in USL too. So watch out for that as well too. You can find me on Twitter at Stateside Footy and also on Instagram at Stateside Footy 76. So go ahead and check that out. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Until next time, have a great evening, guys.